Jack Reacher Never Go Back is the sequel to the 2012 film starring Tom Cruise, and in this movie, Jack Reacher wants to help a phone friend of his, played by Cobie Smulders. He wants to help her clear her name because she got arrested because she was framed for something that she did not do, so now he has to help her find out who the real villain is so she can get her job back. And I was actually kind of excited for Jack Reacher Never Go Back. I was actually a fan of the 2012 movie. I liked it quite a bit. I liked Tom Cruise's portrayal as the Jack Reacher character. I thought the mystery was really interesting, and the action scenes were really well done, so the idea of a sequel actually intrigued me, and they actually got the director of another Tom Cruise film, The Last Samurai, Edward Zwick, to direct this. So my interest for this movie began to grow, especially with those trailers that came out that made this movie seem really action-packed, really exciting, really intense. In actuality, this movie is actually one of the most generic things I've seen this year. I will say that this movie opens up very Jack Reacher-esque. If you've seen the trailer, you know it's the one in the diner. That was actually a really good scene. Unfortunately, as soon as it ends, that's where this movie takes a nosedive. It is so middle of the road, so mediocre, so straight to DVD feeling that it's hard to believe that Tom Cruise actually produced this movie. The genericness of this movie is a combination of multiple things. The first one being the direction. Now, Edward Zwick, as I mentioned, I loved his work on The Last Samurai. In fact, The Last Samurai might be one of my favorite films of all time. It is that good. However, in this movie, his direction just felt so half-assed. There was really no flair behind the camera, especially with its action scenes. Because though the action scenes aren't terrible in this movie, they're not awfully too shaky or anything like that. It's just, it felt so forgettable, bland. Even the final fight, which is a little bit more memorable, the action scenes just really failed to impress me in any way because they just felt so generic. At least with Tom Cruise's other movies, there's some sort of directorial flair going on. Like in the first Jack Reacher, you had that incredible first shot where you have the camera from the sniper's point of view when he's shooting the people. You have that incredible car chase that Cruise was in, and even other Tom Cruise action movies, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation when he's hanging outside the plane, the car chase and then motorcycle chase, the opera scene, the underwater scene, go to Ghost Protocol and you have him climbing the Burj Khalifa, the beach scene alone in Edge of Tomorrow. Tom Cruise has been involved in some really incredible action scenes because in those movies what makes them so special is their directors. They're all doing something unique behind the camera to make it stand out. But in this movie, Edward Zwick really didn't feel like he was trying to do anything impressive here. It just felt like he was just filming it because at the end of the day, he's gonna get paid anyway, so why should he care? I'm telling you guys, I was honestly baffled watching this movie because of how generic it was. This does not feel like a movie Tom Cruise would be involved with. Look at some of his recent films, and then you see Never Go Back, and it is so generic, and it just stands out as a why did you do this? This movie is honestly so generic that it felt like Jason Statham should have done this. I mean, look at Tom Cruise's recent films. Incredible Mission Impossible entries, the first Jack Reacher, Edge of Tomorrow was really great, and even Oblivion, I don't hate. I thought it was actually an interesting idea. But Jack Reacher Never Go Back feels like the kind of movie Tom Cruise would never do. In fact, I just said it's so generic that Jason Statham would do it. At least his movies are hilariously awful. There's really nothing hilariously awful in Never Go Back. So this movie really feels like a find some mediocre action star somewhere and put him in this movie and it'll go straight to DVD, except it went straight to theaters and they got Tom Cruise to do it. I will say though, when action scenes do happen, though they aren't the best, at least there's action going on so you have somewhat interest. Because the intense action thriller that I thought I was going to get from the trailers, that took a back seat to another plot. You see, what the trailers aren't telling you is that this movie is actually an awkward road trip movie where not only Tom Cruise and Cobie Smulders have to get along with each other, but also a young girl who may or may not be Jack Reacher's daughter. Now, I like 2 out of 3 of these characters. Jack Reacher, I still like Tom Cruise's portrayal of the character, and I still liked him in this movie, and he's also really good in his action scenes. And I even like Cobie Smulders' addition with her character. I thought her plot was the most intriguing, and I would have loved if this movie focused on just that. And also the way those 2 characters interacted, because at first, they don't really get along very well. It's the first time they're meeting after talking on the phone for so long, so when they first meet, they realize they have to get along, they have to learn how to work with each other, and I thought a whole movie with that might have actually been better. Unfortunately though, they decided to shoehorn in this may or may not be daughter character plot into this thing, and it really dragged the movie down because she is literally only there to cause problems. She uses a cell phone, even though it's common knowledge now that that can be tracked. She uses a credit card, even after Tom Cruise tells her not to use the credit card. She is literally only there to cause problems and to be annoying. And you could tell it was kind of their way of trying to grow Jack Reacher as a character, but it really doesn't help when this girl is just so annoying to the point where you're literally begging for an action scene. Action scenes that are generic, you're literally begging for them to happen so you can at least get away from this plot. Unfortunately, though, it feels like you're waiting hours for another action scene. It's mainly just them together, acting awkward, trying to get along, bickering, getting mad at the young girl. I was literally just sitting there forever waiting for an action scene to happen. And finally, when one started, I thought, oh wait, is this the last action scene of the movie? Oh crap, there's not a lot of action in this movie. That was not the last action scene. It was actually, like, in the middle of the movie. It felt like I was waiting so long to get away from this boring plot that it felt like I was actually watching the final battle in this movie, only to wait for what felt like another 30 to 40 minutes for another action scene to take place so that I could at least have something somewhat interesting to watch. Some people might say, well, Jackson, if they have an interesting villain chasing them while they're on their awkward road trip, maybe that'll add to some tension, right? And then I would say, maybe, but the villain in this movie kinda sucks, so no. The villains in the first Jack Reacher aren't even perfect. They're fine. They're serviceable for what they have to do. But this villain, honestly, couldn't care less about him. And I like the villain's involvement in the plot. It's just they really don't flesh out his character at all, and I don't really think the actor did a good job playing him. Get a better actor, work on his character more, and I think maybe you could have gotten a somewhat decent villain. Overall, guys, I was really let down by this movie. I still like Tom Cruise, and I like Cobie Smulders' addition, and I thought they interacted really well, and even though the action scenes are generic, trust me, you will beg for them when you watch this movie, because there's just so much awfulness with the road trip awkwardness, the young girl, the really horrible, corny dialogue. There's literally one line where I literally eye-rolled multiple times. I'm gonna give Jack Reacher Never Go Back a C-. I was really let down by this movie. I wanted to love it a lot because I really did enjoy that first movie. Unfortunately, though, they decided to go the generic route with this thing, and I wish this movie wasn't released in theaters. This should have gone straight to DVD with another generic action star, because Tom Cruise doesn't need to do this. He has multiple other things. But if you've seen Jack Reacher Never Go Back, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.